Fighting's continuing in Sudan despite a 3-day truce extension. 530 people have died in 2 weeks of conflict. May Day mayhem in France as violent clashes leave more than 100 police officers injured and hundreds of protest marchers arrested. Despite an agreed 72-hour ceasefire extension, explosions and gunfire. Both sides in Sudan's war, the army and the RSF, blame each other. Some hope, though, with the United Nations saying the two warring generals have agreed to send representatives to talks, possibly in Saudi Arabia.
None of the ceasefires has been respected in total. They have all been respected partially and sometimes only in some locations and not in others.
At an emergency meeting of the Arab League in Cairo, Egypt called for an immediate and comprehensive cessation of fighting. Sudan's health ministry says 530 people, including civilians and combatants, have been killed in the conflict, with another 4,500 wounded. Tens of thousands have fled Khartoum and other cities, and more than 2/3 of hospitals in areas with active fighting are out of service, with fighters looting the dwindling supplies. The UN Secretary-General is sending his deputy Martin Griffiths to the region as the fighting enters a 3rd week. Mayhem on May Day. Arsonists targeted a building site near a protest march in Paris. The thick black smoke billowing above the crowd, a sign, say the police, of as many as 2,000 criminal agitators whipping up violence. The Ministry of Interior says 108 police officers across France were injured and 291 protesters were arrested. The police used tear gas and water cannon in a number of cities across the country. The Prime Minister, Elizabeth Bourne, described the riotous behaviour as unacceptable. The confrontation also drew attention away from the main focus of the May Day marchers. Hundreds of thousands of workers, urged by their unions, were protesting at pension reforms pushed through Parliament by the government, a decision that has left many peaceful marchers furious.
C'est important de dire qu'on n'est pas d'accord, de continuer à le dire, de le répéter.
Jusqu'au retrait, oui, je lâcherai pas.
C'est une réforme qui est vraiment impopulaire et ils l'ont fait passer de force et c'est tellement insulter la démocratie, insulter le peuple français.
Je pense que tout le monde en a marre de voir la déconnexion avec laquelle le gouvernement nous traite.
Although French workers may not be in the mood for giving in on pensions, the government insists on pushing ahead. On May Day, people across Europe protested against inflation and demanded economic justice. In Spain, there were more than 70 marches led by powerful trade unions, with one demand standing out above all others.
En este 1 de mayo en concreto, lo que reivindicamos son unos sueldos dignos y además que se conserve, con respecto a la inflación, el salario.
A demand that was surely shared by the more than 10,000 people who demonstrated in the centre of Athens, the march taking place against the backdrop of the general election campaign, with a vote due on May the 21st. In Berlin, more than 4,000 people took part in the march to celebrate Workers' Day and to demand fairer pay from companies and governments.
Auszuruhen, sondern es ist ein Tag, darauf aufmerksam zu machen, dass es halt nicht richtig läuft in unserer Gesellschaft, wie unfair unsere Ressourcen verteilt ist, wie sehr Menschen bevorteilt oder eben benachteiligt werden, und das ist nicht fair. Und das Mindeste, was ich tun kann, ist ja aufzustehen und mich hier hinzustellen und sagen, hey, das ist nicht fair.
In Russia, the war in Ukraine has overshadowed the celebrations. Far from the large demonstrations of the past, only a handful of communist nostalgics took to the streets to commemorate May Day.
Turkish police and protesters have clashed in Istanbul on Labour Day. Around a dozen people were arrested. Demonstrators were trying to reach the main square, Taksim, which has symbolic importance after unknown gunmen opened fire on people celebrating May Day in 1977, where dozens were killed. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government has declared the square off-limits to demonstrations. However, there are frequent clashes between the police and protesters who try to reach the area.
Turkey's president says his country's special forces have killed the leader of the so-called Islamic State. In an interview with State TV on Sunday, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said the militant was killed in a strike conducted by Turkish forces in Syria.
Milli İstihbarat Teşkilatımız, DAEŞ'in sözde lideri Ebu Hüseyin el-Kureyşi kod adlı şahsı uzun süredir takip ediyordu. Şimdi bunu ilk defa buradan yayınlıyorum.
Son dakika veriyorsunuz. Evet. Son dakika haber veriyorsunuz.
Evet. Bu şahıs Milli İstihbarat Teşkilatımızın dün Suriye'de gerçekleştirdiği bir operasyonla etkisiz hale getirildi. İnşallah bundan sonra da terör örgütleriyle ayrım yapmadan mücadelemizi sürdüreceğiz.
The Turkish intelligence agency said as the fighting intensified, al-Qurayshi, who was hiding in a building on a farm, blew himself up. He took over as leader of the terror group in Syria after its previous chief was killed last October. He had reportedly been trying to resurrect the organization in Syria and Iraq at a time when the extremist group had lost both control of the territory it once held and its influence in the region.
The Turkish presidential elections are just 2 weeks away, and after reports of a health scare, Recep Tayyip Erdogan is back on the main stage and facing the most hotly contested race of his tenure. Early polls show the two main candidates are neck and neck. The current head of state in power for the last 20 years faces rival Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu from the secular and Social Democratic People's Republican Party. Both attended huge rallies this Sunday. In the capital Ankara, Erdogan promised that with God's help he would destroy the opposition. Erdogan, who was Prime Minister from 2003 to 2014 and President since then, faces a competitor who is trying to captivate the young electorate. In all, 5.2 million youths are eligible to vote for the first time, a generation hungry for change. However, only 1/5 of 18 to 25-year-olds are expected to vote. Kılıçdaroğlu leads a six-party coalition and has vowed to, quote, bring back the light to Turkey and rebuild Turkish democracy.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been handing out medals as a widely expected counter-offensive approaches. On Sunday, he honoured the border guard force at an unidentified military base and wished them success in the main battles that he said were coming soon.
Шановні воїни, вже скоро головні битви. Ми маємо звільнити нашу землю і наших людей з російської неволі. Ми маємо відновити повну лінію нашого державного кордону, як на суші, так і на морі. Я впевнений, що героїзм, надійність, стійкість наших прикордонних військ потужно допоможуть Україні на цьому важливому історичному шляху.
Meanwhile, the head of the mercenary group Wagner has said that his fighters in Bakhmut will need to withdraw or stay and die if they don't get more ammunition.
On his return journey from Hungary, Pope Francis has said the Vatican is working on a plan to help bring home deported Ukrainian children taken to Russia. He gave few details but indicated more information would be given once the mission was completed. The Pope said the Church had already facilitated prisoner swaps.
La Santa Sede ha fatto di intermediario in alcune delle situazioni di scambio di prigionieri tramite l'ambasciata, e questa è andata bene. Penso che può andare bene anche questo. È importante. Almeno la Santa Sede è disposta a farlo perché è giusto, è una cosa giusta e dobbiamo aiutare a che questo non sia un casus belli ma un caso umano.
Russia denies any wrongdoing after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant in March for Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russia's Children's Commissioner over the alleged abductions.
In a bid to get more people to use public transport, Germany has launched a €49 monthly pass for urban and regional travel. From Monday, people will be able to use it on trains, trams, buses, the metro, and even ferries. Authorities hope to attract an extra 5 to 6 million subscribers to public networks.
Ich kenne viele, die das haben und das sehr feiern.
Ich werde das jetzt beantragen, einfach weil es eine super Möglichkeit ist, auch für junge Leute.
The ticket is available via smartphone app or as a chip card. However, prices are expected to be increased gradually. The new offer follows on from the highly successful €9 ticket that ran for a 3-month period last summer, with sales topping 50 million. Germany isn't the first country to launch this kind of initiative. A similar drive to reduce private car use has been even more effective in Luxembourg, where public transport was made free of charge 3 years ago. However, the pass's success is not guaranteed, as some highlighted that many commuters who live far from the city centre don't have the rail infrastructure that could replace the car. The countdown to King Charles III's coronation has begun, as hardcore fans of the British royal family are already camping out to witness the historic occasion 5 days before the big day. Hundreds of thousands of people from around the world are expected to travel to London to watch Britain's first 21st century coronation live and in colour.
Yeah, this is a big historic event. The coronation, it's something that we as a group have never witnessed before. We've only seen it in black and white on television.
They arrived today and the coronation is on the 6th. Look at that. They're staying here. Thousands of people will come either tomorrow or the day after, and they will sleep here until the 6th, most of them, to have the best view. But we expect, I don't know, but at least 5 or 6 million people around this area.
The coronation's main public event, the King's procession, will depart Buckingham Palace to reach Westminster Abbey. There, the Archbishop of Canterbury will crown the King and the Queen.